Get Out is written and directed by Jordan Peele and stars Daniel Kaluuya, Allison Williams, Lil Rel Howery, Catherine Keener, and Bradley Whitford. And Get Out is about an interracial couple, Chris, played by Daniel Kaluuya, who's black, and Rose, played by Allison Williams, who's white, as they go off on a weekend trip to meet her parents. He's understandably nervous about meeting an all-white family, but Rose reassures him that they're not racist. And when they arrive, they actually seem like cool people at first, but slowly it becomes more and more apparent that there is something just horribly, horribly wrong going on. Now, I had a ton of hype going into watching Get Out because it just had so much acclaim when it came out here in the Philippines. And what I will say is that every year we get at least one horror movie that's amazing, on the level of Let the Right One In, or It Follows, The Babadook, Under the Shadow, The Witch, but those movies usually come a bit later in the year. However, I will say that this year's amazing horror film came very, very early in March. I swear that this will remain remembered as one of the best films of the year, even at the end of 2017. It's a terrifyingly tense theater experience, it has incredible acting across the board, and it has a script from Jordan Peele that is, honest to God, perfect. Let's talk about these actors first. Okay, first, Daniel Kaluuya, who plays Chris, is genuinely awards worthy for his performance here. When he shows up, he's instantly just the most likable guy, but like in a really chill way. He's just, the sort of person you just want to be friends with and hang out and have a drink with or something. But eventually, as the film goes on, he reveals this entire history of vulnerability that he pulls off so well. You feel every bit of emotion that he shows on his face. And the way he reacts to the situation as it escalates, he just piles on more and more paranoia and fear and panic until it just becomes palpable. Allison Williams in this movie as Rose is also crazy likable. There's a real strength to her, but when she has to be cold, she is freezing cold in this movie. But there is a very sweet chemistry between her and Daniel Kaluuya that really makes you want them to work it out as a couple. Then you've got Lil Rel Howery, who plays Chris's best friend, and he's a riot. He is so funny. He has perfect comedic timing in this movie. And everyone who shows up at the house, from both Rose's parents to some other guests, they're all really chilling, but in a really subtle way. But the real star of this movie really is Jordan Peele. He displays an incredible grasp of filmmaking in just his first film that some directors, I think, still haven't learned throughout their entire careers. He manages to wring such unbelievable tension out of the simplest things. There may be one or two jump scares in Get Out, but they never ever kill the momentum. They always keep the atmosphere creepy. And Jordan Peele's masterstroke here as a director is his mix of making things creepy and funny at the same time until it keeps on building to just pure nerve-wracking terror and unbelievable suspense. I think the best directed scene in Get Out is a certain scene that just has someone walking a bit closer to the camera until their face fills up the entire screen, and it is so unnerving. I feel like horror directors in particular have to work really closely with their editors, and in this case, the editor Gregory Plotkin it really impressed me with just how much tension he was able to wring out as well from such a simple premise. And it's a brilliant move on his part and Jordan Peele's part to not just save all the revelations for like a big plot twist in the third act. Instead, what they do is that they start pulling back the curtain and revealing information relatively early on, and it only makes things even freakier because, while it may be, somewhat predictable, that's not the point of the movie. The point is that, it's making you paranoid about something and you don't want it to be true, but then as your suspicions start being proven right, it's just more horrifying. It's the kind of dread you feel when you realize that you forgot something. Like, it slowly creeps in and you're in denial for a bit, but then when you accept it, it's just really, it makes you freak out. Get Out is a movie that shows just how much you can do with a limited budget when you have a really talented team. This movie doesn't have any excessive gore effects or elaborate set design, but there's still a real attention to detail going on in the production. This movie knows exactly what it needs to show you and what it wants to highlight, and it uses these elements in ways that are memorable, but they never seem obvious. And visually speaking, the most striking image here is this thing called the sunken place, which you're introduced to fairly early on in the movie. It kind of comes out of nowhere, but when you first see it, but it's truly haunting and sad and speaks volumes about the film's central message. There's great use of sound as well in this movie, in that they use noise to unnerve you, but it never becomes cheap. The score from Michael Abels is interestingly eclectic because it uses chanting at the beginning and the end, but overall it really kind of represents everyday suburban horror without ever becoming cliche. You know, they do use like musical instruments and arrangements that sound kind of old-timey, but it never becomes like that Insidious song in that it's like overtly creepy. And I just have to mention, they use a song at the beginning of the movie called Redbone by Childish Gambino, and it is such a spectacular song with lyrics that perfectly match the theme of Get Out, and it's just, if you have not listened to Redbone by Childish Gambino, listen to it now. Now, I haven't really talked about the story of Get Out that much and the characters, but I think that the less you know about Get Out and what it's really about, the better. This movie has twists that are surprising and sometimes even poignant. It is filled with really three-dimensional characters. There's not a single dumb horror movie character here. Everyone's actually really, really intelligent, and you would act the same way if you were in their situation. But the reason why any of this works is because this is a horror film about black fear and liberal racism. It's about the experience of being the only black person in the room, knowing that those in power can very easily treat you as subhuman even if they didn't intend to. And as someone who took a horror class in college, I think this movie is absolutely genius in terms of horror, in terms of, you know, horror theory and what it says and what it stands for. And I think it really brings it home in one of the final shots of the movie. Just, it builds up to this shot that is almost too powerful for words, and I was just, you know, when I saw it, my heart sank, and I was like, that's what they were trying to say, and it was incredible. There's literally only one scene I would say I didn't like in Get Out, even that saying I didn't like it is kind of strong. It's a scene of just straight humor that happens somewhere towards the third act, I would say. And I just feel like it was a little oddly executed, because the rest of the film, Jordan Peele showed us that he's really adept at mixing horror with comedy, but this straight comedy scene came up and it was just a little bit jarring. It clashed just a little bit too much with the rest of the humor. However, in the end, Get Out is an amazing, amazing film. It is not scary in the traditional way, so you have to know that if you're about to watch it. However, I think it's just absolutely required viewing for anybody who can appreciate the deeper meaning in horror movies and anyone who appreciates just really good filmmaking. Alright, so those were my thoughts on Get Out. Have you guys seen it? What do you think about it? Whatever you thought, whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.